Hi, my name is Jessie on Nichols George. I go by On, and I am the author of The Code Journey. This has been amazing work for me to be involved in over many years now. Every year I put out a new edition of this book, which is about dealing with the essence and the energy patterns that are present in our world on a day-to-day basis, and using that to unfold deeper layers of understanding for ourselves and within our world. But I also offer other services in addition to just putting out the book, as if that isn't enough. It's like a 700-page book. So it is a great tool that just integrates into our daily life. And I really love helping people find out more about who they are, understanding more about how they function in the world, how their natural energy currents are, and what their divine spark is all about in this world. And sometimes we don't think of something being a divine spark, right? We think of, well, if I'm on this materialistic pattern, how is that a divine spark? In our world. Well, every one is a divine spark, and every energy pattern in this world is of divine essence, is of God or source energy. And through that, it it has the potential to be a blessing. Um, it all depends on where we stand in the spectrum and whether we want to work with it. But I want to share with you a little bit about one of the other services that I offer, and that is a location report. Now, these reports can be a little bit labor intensive for me. Honestly, it depends. Sometimes I can move through them fairly quickly. Sometimes they take a lot of time and energy. So you have to have a little patience with me if I'm working on this one for you. And they're depending on which component of it we're doing in there. Now, a location report is, as I've talked about in the coding energy, and certainly you can look at my promo videos for the coding interpretation to learn a little bit more about what coding interpretation is and what coding is and how that works. But it's this integration of over 50 different modalities. It's a wealth of decades of experiences and observations and journeying and delving into all different types of modalities and belief systems and practices, and just understanding the divine patterns that are in our world, and understanding how they play out in our world, and how we play out under those patterns, and where we connect with things. And so I give people the warning right up front. Look, locations are not about necessarily finding you that place that you think you want to be. They are going to show you where your energy patterns can have some of the greatest benefits. And what I found is I live where I live in Bethel, Maine, because of my code patterns here. And what happens when I leave this town, if I'm not spending time here, and I've had a couple of winters here in Maine that I didn't live in Bethel, Maine. And I really saw some negative turns happen around the town. Some very materialistic paths showed up, some false paths that showed up along the way. But with my energy current, it really has to do with opening wisdom. And when our energy current is favorable in a house, in a place that we live, in a business, in a town, any of these things, then we actually are the one that has command over what direction things go. We have bigger influences than those that have unfavorable currents in that town. And so if my energy is present, for example, in my town, I'm just using myself as an example, then what can happen is I can open up a certain energy pattern here. Now, other people might have favorable patterns and they can open up other currents that are favorable in the town as well. But I have patterns that open up wisdom and experiences, and it really opens up the sage energy. So my presence here can really be valuable as a sage, as a town elder, so to say, in a way, that is a resource of information. And it opens up holding integrity to going down paths that do offer true healing, true wisdom, true successes, as opposed to false paths, which are manipulated and owned and governed and dictated to and are not based in real life experiences. So it really, my presence here helps to bring out the real life experiences of people in this town and their expertise and their wisdom, and to be successful with that and to offer that up. So there's a lot of layers and components in it that I won't get into in this video, obviously, because I want to keep this shorter. But in locations, every place that we live, every place that we work, and usually those are the two location aspects that I'm looking at, because that's where we spend our most amount of our time and our life. So they have the biggest influence in what we are doing. And they will have some of the biggest influence, just like a spouse will have a huge influence in how our energy flows or what energy patterns open up in our life, because we have our own energy patterns, and then we have those energy patterns that open up with other people, with other places, and things like that. So with the locations, we're looking at, where do you live? And how do you interact with that property's energy, and how you interact at that address, and how your energy patterns are there and what they open up when you're living in that space. Now, of course, depending on our path and how they go, and one of the things that I've learned along the way is that the more you grow and you develop yourself, the more you can harness favorable things, even out of unfavorable patterns. So when I end up victimized, for example, by life experiences, if I am sitting in a place where I have victim energy, it can actually become a shelter for me when I'm going through victimizing circumstances than than making me a victim. So there's some different components there. Again, lots of layers, which I'm happy to discuss a little bit more with somebody if they really want to delve into that. But this is the key of the location report, is to understand how your personal influences interact. So we have three main components when we look at how your energy interacts with with an address. And that would be your interaction with the address, your interaction with the property, and your interaction with the combination of the property and the address. So when we're working with the address, obviously it's the address. When we're talking about the property, we're talking about the parcel ID number that is in there. That's what I work with from there. And then how the two of those, how interact with each other on that. If it's a work address, then, obviously same thing. We're looking at those same components in there. If you are looking at moving someplace, these location charts or these location information can help you to understand what influences you might be stepping into. And I've had people that said, look, we had to move someplace and we needed to do it to be near family because of they're older in life. We need to be where we can get to them, spend time with them. And people have some of these things. They have certain preferences. And the energy currents of where they chose to move into were not very favorable. But knowing that, it allowed them to be more aware. So maybe they can actually divert certain things from happening just through that awareness. Just knowing that they've got to pay more attention, not take chances with things like that. So understanding how that flows, I think this is very important. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking at a business space, then you want a business space that's compatible with you energetically. And if it is compatible, then that is going to support you in having greater success than if you are working with energies that are not favorable. Now, I know of some people, they've opened their businesses, the addresses were already established. There wasn't going to be a change that was going to be made. And it wasn't always a favorable energy pattern for them. But we talked about the different components that were in place and realized, okay, this is what can come up. So if you are going to do a business in this space, here are the pieces that you've got to stay on top of. You have to stay on top of your health. You have to make sure that you are doing things from a divine service space and not from a for-profit space. And that could shift and shape the nature of their business, right? That could shift and shape whether they focus more on service things as opposed to retail things, or these sorts of things. So this is an amazing process to go through. Now, another part of location is helping people to identify where they actually resonate, where their energy connects. And again, this may not always be where your human self wants to be. I can't tell you how many people say, oh, put me on the coast, put me on the coast. It's not me choosing, it's where your energy currents are going to interact favorably. Or some people will say, oh, but I don't like it there. I don't want to be in such a deserted area. But I've had some people that have taken the chance, and they've gone and they've trusted in the information I've given them and said, okay, I wouldn't have consciously chosen this for myself. But once they got in there and they lived there for a little while and they started to open up things, a lot of changes started happening in their life. And they got out of victim spaces and they started gaining their confidence and they started building their self-worth, and all kinds of things happened for them. And so, not what their human mind was set on, but the direction that it took them actually opened up things that they never thought they would have seen in their life. And it's opened up aspects of finding some true happiness and true joy in their life. So sometimes these things do take a little time to open up. Sometimes it matches. I had a couple of spots that I could go to, and I said, hey, if I'm going to run into the same basic challenge in the state of Indiana or the state of Maine, well, I'm going to the state of Maine because I love nature and pine trees. And that's the type of environment I want to be in, as opposed to the Midwest. Nothing wrong with the Midwest. It has its own beauty and everything there as well. But for me, that was the better environment for me. So, and there were certain things that were available to me in the state of Maine energetically that were not available to me in the state of Indiana, for example. So again, understanding these currents and helping people to find, well, where do I belong? And we can look, just within a country, I can look at it. And when we do this, this is multi-layered, because when we're looking at finding your location, we can start as large as what continent, then what country, then what state, then what, county, then what city. And then we're looking at zip code, we're looking at addresses. So it can be a huge process in doing this. Now, also, when I'm looking at just where somebody is already at currently, what I'm looking at, again, I'm looking at everything from the house numbers and the street names, and I'm looking at the cities and the full address and the zip code, because even within a city, you have multiple components. You could literally go 2 houses down or directly across the street and be coded and not be coded where you're at. So it's a very interesting process to delve into, but I enjoy doing it because I really believe that when we start to come into our energetic alignments, we actually are also creating a grid with other people that are in energetic alignments in their spots. And that can make a bigger difference beyond just our own life in that process. But again, this is about being that catalyst for divine presence in the world. So when we are in a place that our energy is got a harmonious alignment, it doesn't mean that you're never going to have a challenge, because our personal currents do ebb and flow, and they do go in and out of favorable and unfavorable from year to year. And there's always going to be challenges coming up. But what it does is it allows you to deal with the challenges when they do come up in your life. So you're never going to escape those life influences, and you're never going to escape the personal year influences that are going on. But when you're in that coded location, when you're in a favorable spot for yourself, then you can deal with them. And that is the difference. You can stand in the divine presence, you can open it up, and you can allow God or divine source to be active in that space. So if you'd like to explore this more, go ahead and reach out to me. My email is Jang, that's my initials, JANG, at compassioncodes.com, or go over to my website, compassioncodes.com, And then also you can reach out to me on social media and just say, hey, I'm interested in going ahead with this. It's something that I would like to do, or reach out and if you've got some more questions, ask me some more questions. Thank you so much.